I want to thank HUD for this opportunity, and I also want to just start off and say this isn't going to be a scientific presentation. There's facts, but no data. So we're going to switch gears just a little bit, and I think it'll be a lot of fun for all of us. It's really, I think it was an amazing. We went through a lot of great science. And I think we need to step back and just think about what this day is about. And it's about new approaches, new ideas, and really focusing on how we utilize these new concepts to change the way we move forward for patients with rare disease. And I know Jennifer is not here, but I also wanted to thank her for her courage and her strength and her voice. Because I think one of the things that we're going to be seeing as we move forward into this new era is that the patient voice and the patient participation is going to be the key for us to understand the phenotype and the genotype and understanding how we build our therapeutic and diagnostic strategies to actually address these new approaches that we have to drive forward. So I'm a geneticist. Maybe some of you know me from working at the Genomics Institute, the Novartis Research Foundation. I've built some pharmaceutical companies and some biotechs. I currently am a senior consultant at PricewaterhouseCoopers for personalized medicine and health informatics in their health advisory group. But that's not why I'm here today, and I'm here to talk to you about my passion, which is rare science. And it's a nonprofit research organization, and I'm not in it alone. I'm in it with some great people that are actually here in the audience. I have Aaron and Jess, and I have the rest of the team here in San Diego as well. But we're a group of volunteer life science executives and PhDs that have worked in drug development for some time. And we all came together because we have a common belief and philosophy that there is a new approach that we can move forward to help accelerate and close the gap between research and the patient voice, and actually driving that to impact new clinical approaches. So actually I should have started this at the beginning then, but what is rare science? And then, so Rare Science is a nonprofit research organization. We just got our 501c3 a couple weeks ago, so we're very excited about getting started. But that doesn't say that we haven't already built some of the tools that are already out there in the community that people are starting to use that I'll share with you today. So we created these tools actually from the patient voice, and I'm going to share a little story about that. But it is to foster and facilitate actually collaboration in an open access way across research organizations. And it's done in a secure, common computational platform that it's cloud-based and sponsored by Amazon. They sponsor our storage and our analytic time. So they've been great partners in us getting started and being able to provide these these tools out to the community. So again, I want to emphasize that everything that we start is through the patient voice, and that's why we're unique. And I wanted to go back to last year when HUD invited a group of people, I think I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be over here, a group of people that I don't think had actually been all in one room before. And so the NGLI1 community at this time, and this gentleman that's a picture on the screen was at one time in an article in New York Times, and the article was called One of a Kind, and he was an N of one, and his father blogged and found the start of the community. And from building the community, from that, you can build an understanding of the biology, and from that, you can build a research community. And I have to say that HUD and his work has been instrumental in actually bringing together this whole community that is now a N of 22. And we also, I wanted to point out, Karen is also here in the audience, and she is a part of the NGLI1 organization as well. So it's great to see her here. But so from this, I think it is, again, a great illustration of what we can do for these communities. And just putting it in perspective is, we've talked about individual rare diseases today. However, I wanted to put it in perspective of how many diseases we think we have out there in the community. And out of all the diseases we know, there's 10,000. 7,000 of them are rare diseases. In the 10,000 common diseases that we know of, there's only 500 therapies that are out there. Out of these 500 therapies, we know that it takes 14 years and $2 billion to actually develop one of the therapies. Out of those, 95% of those fail. So if those are failing for common diseases that we are working on so diligently, don't we need a new approach for that? And especially we need a new approach for rare disease. So if we look at all the rare diseases, the 7,000, and we look at just at the U.S., that is 25 million people across our nation that need that need a new approach. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So I wanted to illustrate why it's so different for the rare disease population and groups. And so just on the top here, this is the patient journey, and down here we have research and development. And so the same things happen in each of these communities for any disease. So you're not feeling well, you need a diagnosis, you find help and support that helps you find clinicians, and those clinicians are working with industry in order to get drugs approved that can be used, and then hopefully you're feeling better in no time soon. And then along the parallel path, we have discovery research that goes through different developmental stages, maybe biotech, larger industry, a whole pile of paper that represents regulatory process and approval. These things, as I mentioned, take time and money that we don't have for the rare disease community. And what I didn't mention was that out of these 7,000 rare diseases, 50% of these are children, and 30% of these children die before their 5th birthday. And I think, it's primarily because of not having adequate diagnostics, and then also the belief that there isn't therapies that are already out there. And through our organization at Rare Science, what we're hoping to do through an open access platform is to really drive research that could potentially identify currently approved drugs that could be used in a more immediate way. So again, what's different in the rare disease patient journey, the obstacles are, again, diagnosis. Well, are there therapies available? Development and supporting of new devices, accessing knowledge and an organized community for support and guidance, the sharing of information within those groups, and the need and the urgency to develop them. And again, access to therapeutics, and then also reimbursement if there are therapies available. I'm not going to get into all of the recent legislation and regulatory advancements that we've seen in the last couple weeks with the Precision Medicine Initiative, the 21st Century's Cures document that has come out, and now the new Open Act that's really going to incentivize repurposing of drugs for industry. But I'm glad to talk to you guys about that at a future time. But they're all really important, and they're happening now. And I think as researchers and people that are committed and advocates for rare disease, we need to understand them and support them and drive them forward. And so really my talk today is really a call to action for each and every one of you to be a part of this. And again, I think most importantly, for researchers and in development, the challenges with rare disease, as you guys already know, is there's small patient number, small data sets, limited amount of samples for for sharing, silos of research, difficulties in getting research funding, and then also the clinical and regulatory approval process, which is slower than what we need. And so very quickly, because I know we are pressed for time, but we're all here also to meet afterwards to demonstrate what we have already going. But what we've created through the Rare Science is the Rare Hub, which is a common information platform which we utilize the voice of the patient community to build tools that enable them to navigate the sea of information that's out there, to bring together patient communities so they can find each other, so that they can get support. In addition, to be able to drive the understanding of what's going on phenotypically so that they can identify researchers. And then what we do is we can be a neutral source of information where the research community can access this information, and then that information obviously can go back out to the research community. So we're really a neutral, centralized access point to being able to store and contribute tools, but also leverage existing information that's out in the community. Currently, we're working on 3 different modules. The first one, which was initially called the Research Information and Coordination module, which was way too long, we realized then the community started calling us the match.com between patients and researchers. So now what we're calling this is we're Rare Match. Very simple and straightforward. We also are building an analytics tool to be able to analyze all the data trends that we're collecting. And then we also aim to facilitate and crowdsource discovery that we can apply for these communities. So Rare Match, really quickly, is again, it was built from this, actually the experience last year in this room, where for the first time we brought, HUD actually brought the patients, the parents, and the researchers all together. And there was no common place in which people could share information, even just basic contact information of the kids. They didn't know what researchers to actually reach out to. They didn't know where to send their samples. They didn't know which consent forms went with those samples to what hospitals. They were all texting and communicating by email. And then when they got started, the information was and is still being tracked by Excel sheet. And so what we're aiming to do is actually, we have a patient onboarding that allows the groups actually templated on what the NGLIDE1 group has been needing to enter in information. And researchers can also do that. And again, it is not to replace what's already out there in the community, but actually to leverage it so that we can create what's needed. Going to the centralized access point, you can pull in all of the other tools that you actually also need. So the Rare Match that we've built is disease-based protocols. So each new group, we have about 5 now that we're working on, which can be N of 1 to N of, we're up to 1,000. They can either do not have a registry, or they are working on a registry, or we can help them with a registry. But we have a very simple patient onboarding protocol where you enter your name, your information, you decide how much information you want out there. And then we also have the link to the researchers. So researchers can then know that what they're working on, what tools, research tools that are available, what they can share across their community. And then when they choose, they can actually share their data through this neutral place, permission controlled, so it's security controlled, share it with each other in order to really be efficient on how we are moving the discovery forward. And then we also aim, when everybody's comfortable, to actually push some of this data out, open access to the community to actually crowdsource more discovery. So I will pause there for any questions. I think that what we'd like to do is actually have more of an open dialogue and informal discussion of the needs that you guys are seeing in the community. We're open, obviously, to new partnerships and collaborations. That's what we're about. These are our current partners and collaborators that help us. Obviously, we've got Amazon really supporting us on the cloud services. Effective Dynamics is doing all of our coding and engineering development. Rancho Biosciences is an amazing data curation and harmonization group. And obviously, we work with Morrison Forster, who helps us with all our legal, and Global Genes as well. But we obviously work with NGLI1. HUD has been instrumental in helping us with a lot of different groups. We're currently working with some of these foundations listed here, the Prader-Willi group, Save John, and then other supporting groups. We also just recently started a new partnership with a boutique rare disease clinical trial group. And as you realize, we can start collecting this data, but if we don't have a way to test these new ideas coming forward, we're not going to be able to have clinical impact on these patients. So we started working with this boutique group that really focuses on how to build statistical significance in groups that are of a small patient size. So we really hope to have that triangle of the patient, clinic, research, and clinic, and closing that gap and really accelerating how we can help patients in a more immediate way. So thank you.
Questions? So one of the things that, I don't know if you're looking at this, but one of the things I think is probably important is the regulatory burden. So here, there's all these potential sugars that could be various diseases there. And the FDA is applying rules of drugs that have never been in humans, where these sugars are normal constituents. Yeah. And to me, that is something that really needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that you've been working on some of that. I think that, there's a lot, and I would like to hear your input on that. I do know that there are, there's a lot of different groups right now that are looking at changing the process of approval. Not only for this, but repurposing of drugs and diagnostics. And I think that one of the things that is so important is that all of these groups need to be in the same room. They need to start talking to each other so they understand what are the issues and the urgencies. And so it's really, again, I think the call to action for all of us to be in that room and active in making those changes. And I haven't seen a time other than right now that voice is being heard. And I can definitely, if you'd like to be a part of this, can connect you with some people that we work with that we can make some changes. Yeah.
Actually, I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to pull this meeting together, is to show the diverse opportunities of simple sugars. And I think my sort of final point, and that's that it's not only rare diseases that can be affected, but it has implications across the board in a lot of different diseases. And so, just as Chris says, now we can begin to get a critical mass of people together who think about, well, maybe sugars for cancer, maybe for immunology, maybe for common diseases as well as the rare diseases. So I think we have an opportunity to pull this kind of thing together, and that's what has been lacking. The knowledge within the scientific community how we partner up with patient groups. And to me, that's the thing that's going to drive everything into the future. And you may have noticed, and this I find a point of encouragement, some of the speakers are old white guys, right? I mean, to use the vernacular, right? But a lot of the speakers today are younger people who are coming along who don't have this absence of information about sugars and have discovered them in various ways and now say, hey, there got to really be something going on here. So I think the future is poised, and we are ready to go with this kind of thing. We just got to pull it together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question for people in the room, because I don't know the answer to this, is who decides what's a nutraceutical and what is a drug? I mean, the glucosamine is sold over the counter as a nutrient, whereas silyl lactose isn't. I don't understand that at all. Who makes those decisions?
Yeah.
They're all nutrients. Silyl lactose is in milk, right?
Yeah.
So I can comment on that. I have some intimate knowledge on this because I've been interacting with the FDA at WCMAC. So their claim is that it doesn't matter what it is, if it's going to be used as a drug, then it requires phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, blah, 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 blah. But if it only is used to look at structure and function, and not disease, then it doesn't require burden. However, I've also found them not willing to admit that when you do a structure function study with a sugar, that it is a structure function study and they want to call it a drug. So, I've been going back and forth with them for almost a year, and the lack. I mean, they're not willing to consider, look at the fact that these are normal constituents. Body, they're not drugs. They're not something that's never been in humans, and they're calling them drugs. And I don't know, some of the earlier talks on Manac, that 3-year, just so that they had to put Manac in rats for 3 years. I mean, given what's happening now with some of the science, I think that is probably one of the most important things to speeding change and treatment, is to get the FDA to change how it deals with these sugars.
I think you got a really good point there. And I think the reason things are probably going to change, maybe it's not going to happen overnight, but you're probably familiar with Aaron Topol's book, The Patient Will See You Now. And in there he says, hey folks, the old days are over. Paternalistic medicine where the doc says, I have this and I have the knowledge and you, the patient, you're at the bottom of the totem pole. That's all going to change. Because now we have the internet, we have all the stuff you saw from last year in these meetings taking place. The same thing's happening this year. There's going to be power in the voters and taxpayers who have rare diseases, and remember that's 10% of the population. And more of these diseases are going to be discovered in the next several years as whole exome sequencing takes off. And how many of those, maybe a minority, would be impacted by sugars? But I think there is going to be a groundswell that comes from people. There are two requirements. One is the organization, as Chris was talking about. The second thing is I think we, as scientists, need to be ready to go out there and talk in normal language about what we do, about how we do it, and how it's important. And we got to make it in understandable language. And if we do that, we're going to get people on our side, and that's going to make a difference. It's not going to happen overnight, but I think we have to be ready as scientists to go out there and make these points and to say, I can help you, and that's my job, and that's what I want to do. And I think we need to unite together. And Mike, I think your example is perfect on that. I think what they've gone through at the NIH with MNAC is another good example. And of course, not many people ever know Bud's biome.
All right, let's thank all the speakers. And Hud will give additional closing remarks.
I think I've said it all. Nothing more on the topics. Thanks to all the speakers today who've done such a tremendous job of pulling all this together. And we're going to have the doctors in session tomorrow morning. We've got a rough schedule worked out. The patients who will participate in this are getting sort of checklist and for how they'll be seeing docs and what that will look like. For those people who are not getting doctored, if you will, for people who are have more science to talk about than medical or patient aspects, we're going to have a get-together in the lounge upstairs right above the entryway, and we'll have coffee and donuts and that sort of thing. But assemble here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we'll let you know what's going on. And again, just thanks to everybody for everything you've done today. It's been terrific.